Do you hear that? Real stories, real fear.
Daniel.
Daniel, we've been waiting.
When I first bought the house, I thought I'd finally made it. Years of renting dingy apartments, saving every bit I could, and finally, I was signing my name on a mortgage. A place that was mine. The house sat on a quiet street, on the edge of town, surrounded by tall, overgrown trees that seemed to keep the rest of the world out. It was an old 2-story home with peeling blue paint and a tilted front porch, the kind of house people drove past without noticing. But to me, it was perfect. My sister Melissa helped me move in that Friday. She joked that the place looked haunted, but I brushed it off. The inside wasn't too bad. Creaky floors, dated wallpaper, and a smell of dust and old wood that clung to every room. Still, there was something comfortable about it, at least in daylight. That night, when she left, the house grew silent. Not peaceful silence, thick silence. Like the air itself was listening. I stayed up late unpacking boxes in the living room. The grandfather clock I'd bought secondhand ticked loudly in the corner. I remember checking my phone. It was 1:57 a.m. That's when I heard it. A whisper, faint, drawn out, like a breath slipping through the hallway. It said my name. Daniel. I froze mid-step. The TV was off. No cars outside. No wind. Just that whisper. I stood there for what felt like a full minute, listening. Nothing else. Eventually, I convinced myself it was the pipes, or maybe just my imagination after a long day. But when I went upstairs to bed, I noticed something strange. The bedroom door had small scratches on the inside, long, thin ones near the handle, like someone had been clawing from the inside out. I didn't sleep much that night. The next morning, the house looked innocent again. Sunlight spilled through. The windows, dust particles floating in the air. I almost laughed at myself. I spent the morning painting the guest room, then started setting up my small office near the back of the house. Around noon, someone knocked at the door. It was an older man, gray hair, worn flannel, the kind of face that had seen too many winters. He introduced himself as Jim, my neighbor from across the street. "Just thought I'd come say welcome," he said, shaking my hand. "Not too many people move out here anymore." We talked a bit about the quiet neighborhood, the weather, until I mentioned the house's previous owner. The realtor said an older couple lived here before me. "The Carsons?" Jim's face changed. His smile faded. "Yeah, the Carsons," he muttered. "They didn't stay long either." "What do you mean?" He hesitated, then shrugged. Nothing you need to worry about. This house just doesn't seem to like people much." I laughed nervously, thinking he was joking. But Jim didn't laugh back. He just nodded politely and walked away. That evening I tried watching TV to drown out the uneasy quiet, but the air felt charged, like the walls were full of static. I went to bed early. The wind outside picked up, brushing against the old windows. I was half asleep when I heard it again, the creak of floorboards, outside my room, slow steps, bare feet. One after another. I turned over, staring at the door. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. The steps stopped, right outside my room. And then, through the thin crack under the door, I saw a shadow. Someone was standing there. My throat went dry. I reached for my phone, flashlight on. The second I did, the shadow moved away. The footsteps went down the hall. I waited, counted. 10 seconds. Then I opened the door. The hallway was empty, but the floorboards were still swaying slightly, as if someone had just walked over them. I barely slept. Again. The next morning, I noticed something new. The whispers hadn't stopped. They just got smarter. When I went into the kitchen, the Faintest sound followed me. Soft, muffled murmurs just below the edge of hearing, like voices beneath the floor. I tried ignoring them, humming to myself, slamming cabinets. It didn't matter. And that night, they got louder. At 3:14 a.m., I woke up to the sound of someone whispering from inside the wall beside my bed. I pressed my ear against the plaster and heard it again, a woman's voice, saying my name. "Daniel, you came back." I backed away, trembling, staring at the wall. I didn't know what came back meant. I'd never been here before. At least, I didn't think I had. And then came the faint scratching, slow, deliberate scraping from inside the wall. I ran downstairs and turned on every light in the house. That's when I saw something on the living room floor that hadn't been there before. A photograph. It was me, standing in front of the house, holding the sold sign, smiling. But the angle was wrong. The picture had been taken from upstairs from the attic window. I stood frozen in the living room, staring down at the photograph. It didn't make sense. The shot had been taken from above, the same angle as the attic window. But I hadn't been up there yet. And the date on the back, February 8th, 2 days before I bought the house. Someone had been here before me, and they knew I was coming. The next morning, I forced myself to check the attic. The door was in the hallway ceiling, the string handle dangling like a noose. Pulling it down, the ladder dropped with a loud creak. Dust fell through the air as I climbed up, flashlight in hand. The attic was small, sharp-angled, and dim. A single round window let in slivers of light. Boxes and furniture were scattered around. Beneath the window, a wooden chair faced outward, the same spot where I'd been standing in the photograph. On the chair lay a small cushion, worn and torn. Around it were strange items, a candle stub, a dried flower, and a rusty key. Behind the chair, faint writing covered the wall. Dozens of names, scratched or written. And near the bottom, one name stood out. Daniel. I froze. I had never been here before, hadn't written my name. Then something brushed my shoulder. I spun around, flashlight shaking. Nothing. Just dust motes in the beam. Behind some boxes, I thought I saw a shadow duck. "Hello?" My voice cracked. Silence. I moved closer. The floorboards creaked under my feet. The boxes were empty. The flashlight flickered, then went out. Pitch black. A whisper. "Daniel." I bolted down the ladder. My heart pounded. When I hit the hallway, the attic door slammed shut on its own. The whisper didn't follow, but the silence was worse. That night, I couldn't sleep. At 2:30 a.m., I woke to the attic ladder creaking open. A faint light spilled down from the round window. Footsteps slowly descended. Bare feet on wood. I grabbed my phone, flashlight on, a brief outline of pale, unmoving feet. Then the light blinked out. I looked again. Empty hallway. The attic door closed as if untouched. The next morning, I called the realtor. I tried to sound calm. "The Carsons?" I asked. "What happened to them?" "They left suddenly," she said, voice low. "The husband, he started seeing things, hearing voices. He said the house kept calling his name, 'Welcome back.'" That night I dreamed of the attic. Sitting in that chair, staring out the window, writing my name over and over. When I woke up, my hands were covered in dust, as if I'd already been there. When I woke up that morning, my hands were covered in fine gray dust. I tried to convince myself I'd knocked over a box in my sleep. But the dust smeared across the sheets, proof I hadn't imagined it. And then I heard it. Whispers. Soft, deliberate, coming not from above or the walls, but from beneath the floor. "Daniel. Come closer." My heart pounded. I lifted a floorboard. Nothing. Yet the whisper grew louder. "We've been waiting." That night I couldn't sleep in my bedroom. Every floorboard groan sounded like pacing, though the attic was dark and still. I camped in the living room, lights on, trying to distract myself. Then came the tapping. from the kitchen floor. Each tap matched my heartbeat, slow, steady. I crept toward it, flashlight shaking. Nothing. Silence, then a whisper, so close it felt like breath on my neck. "We see you." The next morning I called my sister Melissa, explaining everything. "You're scaring yourself," she said calmly. "Old houses make noises. Floors creak. Wind moves things. Don't let your imagination take over." But I knew she was wrong. This house wasn't just old. It was aware. Watching. Waiting. That night, I set my phone on the floor in the living room to record the whispers while I slept on the couch. Hours later, I woke to tapping again. My phone buzzed. I picked it up, still recording. Playing it back, I realized the whispers weren't random. "Daniel, you came back. Daniel. We've been waiting. Daniel." My hands trembled. These voices knew me, calling me like the Carsons before me. Sleep became impossible. Footsteps at odd hours, pacing from the living room to the kitchen, stopping outside my bedroom. Once I woke to see a shadowy figure at the foot of the stairs. It didn't move or speak, just watched. Blinked, and it was gone. Then came the smell, rotten metallic sharp from beneath the kitchen floorboards. I dropped to my knees, lifting one. Dust, dark and sticky, clung to the wood, and a handprint. Small, pale, child-sized, pressed into the dust beneath the floorboards. I stumbled back. The Carsons' stories came to mind. The husband seeing things, hearing voices. The whispers weren't random. They had been waiting. For me. That night I packed a bag and stayed at Melissa's, trying to escape. But my phone buzzed at 2 a.m. A text from an unknown number. "You shouldn't have come back. No sender. No reply possible. Just the words." My phone died moments later. The next day I returned to the house. The attic ladder was down, the round window open, and the wooden chair moved outside, on the porch, slightly tilted as if someone had just left it there. The house was no longer just watching. It was reaching out. I couldn't stay away. Not really. Something kept pulling me back. A mix of fear, curiosity, and disbelief. But when I stepped back inside that house, I knew. It had changed. The air was heavier, thicker, as if the walls themselves were pressing in. The attic ladder hung slightly lower than I remembered. The round window above was open, letting in pale moonlight. And the wooden chair, the one that had mysteriously appeared on the porch, now sat inside the living room. Perfectly centered, facing me. I froze. Every instinct screamed to run. But I couldn't. Then the whispers started again. From the floorboards, from the walls, from the attic above, everywhere at once. "Daniel, you came back. Daniel, we've been waiting." I backed away, fumbling, with my phone trying to record it to prove it to myself I'm anything rational. But the screen went black. Dead. A cold wind blew through the house, though every window was closed. Papers fluttered across the floor. Shadows stretched and twisted unnaturally across the walls, and then I saw it. A faint figure in the attic window. Pale, featureless, watching me. I couldn't move. My body refused. Suddenly, the chair slid toward me on its own. Slowly, smoothly. I stumbled back, tripping over a rug. My hand scraped the floor, but the figure in the window didn't move. It just waited. I ran for the front door. Tried to open it. Locked. Of course. It had been locked from the inside. The house wasn't letting me leave. The whispers rose, louder, urgent now. "Daniel, stay. Stay." The temperature dropped. My breath fogged in the air. I glanced at the living room floor. The dust beneath the boards had shifted. Handprints, hundreds of them. And at the center, my name carved into the wood. Daniel. I screamed. The house responded. The lights flickered violently. The chair tipped. Forward, and not falling, but hovering just above the floor, and I felt it. A pressure, a force pushing against my chest, holding me in place. I struggled, but it was useless. The house. It owned me. The next morning, Melissa came over. I didn't answer the phone, didn't reply to texts. When she entered, the front door was open. The living room was empty. No chair, no dust, no footprints. But in the front yard, there was a single photograph. It showed me, asleep on the couch. My eyes open, staring at the ceiling. Behind me, in the shadows, the outline of a chair and the faintest shape of a figure in the attic window. I never went back. And sometimes, late at night, I hear my name whispered in the wind. Daniel. Daniel. We've been waiting.